Hey, everybody, and welcome back for another episode of The Overlay, a poker podcast brought to you by, as always, CCG Poker and Paramount Social Club in Houston, Texas. Hey, Brandon, how are you today?
What's up?
We're on episode 50. Just let that sink in for a second. Think about it. I want you to stop, think. Because it's great audio podcasting work is when you ask the audience just to sit in a moment of silence with you
and just
for episode.
And just
wow, did you just say pontificate?
Yeah.
Nice. Word of the day. Was that your toilet paper word of the day?
That was it.
Nice.
Done.
Pontificate. I'm sold for the rest of the year. Not only is it episode 50, which is a huge milestone because 99% of all podcasts never get past episode 1.
All right, you just made that up.
I make up a lot of stats, and nobody ever seems to argue with me, so I just keep making them up.
45% of your stats are made up.
45% of my stats are right 80% of the time.
Yep.
Episode 50, which is awesome. I would have never thought that our COVID project, because that's really what this is. It was our COVID project. We have never done an in-person to person podcast. Maybe once.
We did once.
We did one, and it actually sounded not cool, and I didn't like looking at you.
I was like, where do I put my eyes?
We've done 49 episodes out of the 50, today included, all on the phone, which is great. I think it's, pretty good audio. Sometimes Brandon sounds weird, but that's all right. That's just Brandon. He sounds weird. He's got one of those orthodontist things going, so it's great.
Yeah.
You did get a lot of love last week, or 2 weeks ago, whatever it was, episode 49, when people were like, man, I love when you were just picking on Brandon because he couldn't say any words because of his new dental work being done. I was like, yeah, it was great. What a kind person I am.
At the event, the last 2 or 3 events, people are like, man, I recognize your voice. I'm like, well, now you recognize my voice because it sounds so stupid.
I talk like I have
you never recognized my voice in the
big
first
retainer in my mouth.
Episodes.
Yeah. Some guy was like, oh, I love the podcast. He's like, who's the other guy? I was like, it's Brandon. They're like, who the hell's Brandon? So apparently you're not you're not as popular as I am.
Well, I'm only working 1 day a week these days. So
episode 50 is today. And we're at 9,972 downloads, which means as of today, because we're recording and releasing on the same day, which we've also never done, but we just couldn't find time to do it yet. So Brandon's sitting in the parking lot at the Max. I am at the office waiting to drive to the Max with some brand new cash game tables.
I'm literally watching players just walking.
Nice. Wave to him. Be like, hey, you're on the podcast.
Oh, there's a guy who's coming late for the early bird.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, there's a PLO guy.
You got 13 minutes to get into that early bird, sir.
Yep.
We are 28 downloads away from 10,000 downloads, which again is another crazy number that I never would have thought we would have gotten. So I guess just thank you to everybody out there. If you could take one step further, go to Apple, if you're listening to us on Apple Podcasts, and just hit 5-star review. You don't even have to leave a review. Leave a review if you want. But so many people have just 1/3 of those people actually gave us a 5-star review. Bam, we'd be good to go.
I know. We'd be like Joe Rogan. Spotify would be hitting us up.
That guy sold his podcast.
Contract.
Yeah, for $180 million or something, right? 110?
Yeah.
Something fucking crazy. Anyways, 3 minutes in. What's the topic of the day, Brando? Episode 50. Special.
Little open-faced Chinese poker.
Because nothing says episode 50 of a poker podcast rather than a side game of non-poker gaming stuff.
Right.
Yep.
So open-faced Chinese, OFC. You want to jump right into it?
Yeah, let's do it. Open-faced Chinese poker.
An event here.
Brandon is going to be the our expert as always. I'm going to be the layman who just kind of asks questions and throws in random statistics now and again.
However, I don't mean to interrupt, but you did play second place or even win, I think, the inaugural OFC tournament.
I won.
You won because I
Now, in all honesty, let's be honest. It was me and Pat the Knit, who you can listen to on episode 5 or 6 or 7. He was one of our guests. It's the Pat the Knit episode, how to stretch $12 into a bankroll of 30 years of playing poker. It's not quite 30, but it's a lot. Pat is an incredible episode 19, the one with Pat the Knit, the part-time poker pro. He's like a part-time poker pro. He's a part-time professional Frisbee golfer. He's a full-time teacher.
So here's my question.
Kid's got 9 jobs.
At teaching poker, or frisbee golf?
I don't know.
To rank them.
I'm going to ask him. Let's actually ask him. Pat, if you could shout out to us on Twitter. Does Pat use Twitter? He probably does.
I think so.
He's young. He should know how to use Twitter. 1, Pat, follow us on Twitter. 2, let us know what you are the best at. Poker, frolf, or teaching. I really hope it's teaching, but I
really hope teaching.
I kind of think it's either poker or frolf because he's pretty good at both. Anyways,
he is.
I did beat Pat in that OFC. Only time we've ever done an OFC tournament.
We ran out of time, so we had to come back the next day.
Yes.
They played it at the next night. I think it was kind of like me and Kenny and Ice A's against Pat.
Yeah. Because I'm a noob.
Where Kenny's like, I'm going to put the 9 in the middle, and me and Alex like, yeah. He's like, yeah, you're right, man. And Pat's like, come on, guys. And we're like, what? We didn't say anything. We just I
think we had chopped the prize pool too, and we were just playing for the title, so it really didn't matter. But yeah, if it was anybody else,
monetarily wise, it didn't matter. But.
Correct. It was pride. It was pride only, and it was super fun. Okay, OFC. I'm going to try to give you the super basic breakdown of how to play just Chinese poker, which I hope is still okay to say. I mean, that's the name of the game. And it is 2021, so things do get weird when you have like a nationality named after a game, but it's what it's called, Chinese poker. And it's played with a single deck of cards, correct?
Yep.
One deck of cards. And basically you have 3 boards, meaning you've got a bottom 5-card hand, a middle 5-card hand, and then a top 3-card hand. And you have to make your best depending on the variation that you're playing, but we're going to talk about OFC high, correct?
Yeah, we're only going to talk about
high. We're typically only playing high, which means your back board or your bottom board has to beat the middle board, and the middle board has to beat your top hand in order to qualify. I'm air quoting, qualify, in which case then you can try to talk about royalties. So the idea of give us the breakdown of how open face works.
You did not a great job of that.
Yeah, I tried. I got that there's 3 boards.
Chinese poker, you get 13 cards. You got to make a 5-card hand on the bottom, a 5-card hand in the middle, and a 3-card hand on top.
That does add up to 13. Hold on, let me check your math there.
Yep, 5 plus 5 plus 1 plus 1 plus 1. Yep,
13.
Yep.
13.
So your bottom hand has to be the strongest, and then your middle hand has to be worse than your bottom, and then your top hand has to be the worst. So, for example, if you got a boat on the bottom and then a straight in the middle and then a pair of 5s on top, that would be legal.
That would be the correct
You couldn't make a straight on the bottom and a flush in the middle because that doesn't work.
But you just foul out.
Right, but when you're playing regular Chinese and you just get all 13 cards, you don't really foul.
So in the original game, Chinese poker, you got dealt 13 cards.
Yep.
And you
just made your hand.
Didn't show them. It was kind of like gin. You just looked at your 13 cards, put them in whatever order you want, and then you place your hands, your bottom board, your middle board, and your top board. And again, they have to go in order. You can't have different ones, right? Like it's got to go bottom is your best, the middle hand is the middle hand, and the top hand is the worst of the 3 hands.
Yep, and then you just try and you got 4 people playing, and like the best, you play $5 a board, and the best hand on the bottom gets $15 from everybody, and the best hand in the middle gets $15 from everybody, and then the best hand on top gets $15 from everybody, kind of thing. You're just trying to beat the other people's
And did you play royalties then as well?
No, we never played royalties.
It was just kind of a blind hand. Everybody got 13 cards. You dealt out all 52, and then again, one person would win that bottom board, one person would, or you could scoop, and then it was doubled, right?
Yep, you scoop and it's doubled.
So if you're playing $5 a board, it would be $10 a board then, so you would win 30?
Yeah.
Double math.
You would win 15 and then a double. Yep.
Wow, that's very rare in 4-person Chinese poker. Now,
yeah, it's tough to scoop.
Then it's harder because, like all games that include cards, we want to play less and less players, right? You start playing heads-up matches. So then how did the game kind of change from getting dealt, the whole deck getting dealt out to 4 players? Now you're down to 2 players, and it kind of changed a little bit. How did that work?
Yep. So then that's where all open face Chinese comes, as opposed to, like blind or closed face, which is what we just talked about. Open face, everybody got 5 cards. And this is typically 2 or 3 players. It can't be more than maybe OFC original could be 4, but we're going to say it was 3-player max.
Correct.
And everybody gets 5 cards, and you have to place them wherever you want them, in the top section or the middle section or the bottom section. And once they're there, you can't move them. So they're cemented in there. You can place them wherever you want, but then they're stuck there. So if
once you set your hand, once you set your
hand
hand and get dealt 3 new cards, because that's what happens in the next rotation, right?
Yep.
So you get
then
5 cards to start, you place them, then everybody gets 3 cards again, and then you place them, and then you get 3 cards again and place them.
You place 2 and discard 1, yeah.
That's the pineapple version? Now, is there
right. The original version is you got 1 card and you played it.
Okay. Go ahead.
So it was just like,
interrupting.
yeah, we skip, but it's okay. I mean, you got to say something or else it's just going to be the Brandon podcast.
Mhm.
Call it the Brandon Lay or something. I don't know.
Nice.
Anyways, so yeah, everybody just got 1 card, and then you place that card, and then you put another card, and you try to build hands. You're going to have 4 spades in the bottom. You're going to try and make a flush at the bottom. You're going to try to make 2 pair or trips in the middle, and
But
then a
there's
pair on
way
top.
more strategy with open face Chinese poker.
Right, because when you get all 13 cards at once, you have
It's easy. No.
It's easy. You put your bottom on the bottom, you put your next best in the middle, and you put your highest pair on top. It's
Right.
over. But when you have to build, you have to see what the other players have. Oh man, do I start with 3 spades on the bottom because there's a bunch of spades already out?
Right.
Oh, but I have Queen Jack, but there's no 10s, 9s, and 8s, so maybe I'm going to put Queen Jack on the bottom and go for boats or straights and not flushes. So it's kind of a lot more strategy. So then skipping the boring OFC, which I don't know how long regular OFC was around before.
Meaning you got 5 cards and then 1 card, place it.
And then
1 card, place it. 1 card. But you had to play the card that you were dealt. No matter what. There was no thinking other than where to place it.
So then now to evolve it, we like more cards, more gamble. We like PLO. We like options. We like a bunch of different, unlimited variables.
Action.
So then they action. So then it evolved to Pineapple, OFC Pineapple, which is what is so popular today. Now when you talk about open face Chinese poker,
that's just what they're assuming.
Basically talking about the Pineapple variant.
Right.
Because it has become the dominant game. So in that, instead of getting 1 card and placing it, you get 3 cards and you place 2 and discard 1.
Correct.
So now you have more cards, more options. You're not really cemented in, I have 1 card, it's an ace. I kind of got to play it here. Now you got an ace and a spade and a 5. And now it's like,
what are you going to play?
Spade?
What are you going to discard?
Correct.
Where are you going to put it?
Yeah. So now there's all these different variables. So now that's kind of the primary game we're going to be talking about for the rest of the podcast. And that's how kind of it evolved from no peak, lay your cards down to, it's open face, but you only get 1 card at a time, to now open face 3 cards at a time. And you need to build out your best, poker hands, bottom, middle, top.
Well, I mean, the game that requires the most strategy to play out of those 3 games is open face Pineapple.
Yep.
Because
Correct.
you have to discard, and then and you do still go in order. Like if you and I are playing heads up and you're the dealer, I have to place my cards first, so the dealer gets to see what you play, and then I can make my decision on what I want to play based on what you have. Because if I'm trying to go
the dealer is still positioned. There's still a positional advantage in this
and it
game,
switches every hand. It moves around just like regular poker. That's part of the poker aspect of it. Because Chinese poker is kind of half table game, half poker, and half solitaire.
So if you've ever played Pai Gow at the casino,
Mm-hmm.
I think Pai Gow is
the closest.
Yeah, I think you get 8 cards in Pai Gow and you play a 5-card hand and a 3-card hand.
Yeah.
And, the top has to be worse than the bottom, and you just try and beat the dealer. Anyway, so it's, there is poker because there's a lot of strategy. It's poker hands, it's full houses, it's flushes, it's straights, it's, it's building poker-wise, and you got to use outs, and you got to see, do a little bit of math, but at the same time, it's kind of gambly table game in the sense of you're not really playing against each other in the sense of, it's 1-on-1. It's like 1-on-1, but you're in your own dome.
Yeah, and there's no raising or bluffing.
Right, or outplaying.
Really.
I mean, sure, you can outplay because I'm gonna count my outs better and know the situation's better, and sure. But in terms of wow, I just owned you. I made you fold the best hand.
That doesn't
river.
exist.
That doesn't exist in this game. So it is against each other, but you are you're in control of your own destiny.
You are, and there's different things too, right? If somebody's got a better top hand, it's I would normally not draw to this particular hand because I have 2 outs to make my straight in the middle, so I don't get scooped on this entire board.
Right.
Where I would normally not do that, but it's shit, I have to do it now because this is the only way I'm going to not get scooped, and I'm probably going to foul anyways. So it's whatever. You just take a beating.
So
Hail Mary.
Now, little Hail Marys. Hail Marys happen every once in a while, and then every once in a while you get there. So I guess the cool thing and kind of the addicting thing and the action driver, I'm just going to move into Fantasyland because I feel like that is that's really what makes the game cool for everybody.
Yep.
So
explain fantasy for us.
I will. So the whole basically, it's kind of like a bonus. It's a bonus land. You're in if you qualify with a certain set of qualifications. Yes, qualify with qualifications. I know, funny. If you get there into Fantasyland, you are enter a bonus land where you get to see all your cards at once. You basically go to old school original Chinese poker, like we were talking about, and you don't have to, go picking up 5 and then 3 and discarding 1 and 3 and discarding 1. You just get all your cards at once. And
So
now you get to make your optimal hand.
It kind of goes back to the close,
the OG basics.
The original, right. Except I get to see all my cards at once, make whatever hand I want between those. What do you get, 14 cards? You discard 1.
Yeah, you get 14 cards. So you get even a bonus card.
Yeah, which is even grosser. You get a bonus card and you get to pick and choose what you're doing. It's a huge advantage. And in order to get into fantasy, how do you qualify for a fantasy hand?
So you have to have queens or better on top and then qualify. So this is what the incentive for gambling is in the game. Like the whole action driver, it's kind of like the blinds going up in a poker tournament. Like Fantasyland is what makes the action, it makes you gamble. You can just sit there and make a flush on the bottom and a straight in the middle and nothing on top all day.
King
and
high,
you can do that, and it is boring, and you can make a pair of 2s or king high or ace high. But when you get dealt, let's just say I'm just going to put a random one. King, king, ace, 10, 9. King, king, ace, 10, 9. Now, instead of putting your kings on the bottom and whatever, ace, king, king on the bottom and trying to make a strong 2-pair or a full house and then 10, 9 in the middle, you're going to put the king, king on the top, the ace in the middle, and then the 10, 9 on the bottom. And now you're going to go for Fantasyland. Right now, you're
basically, right, you're only playing to qualify to get into fantasy. Even if you lose that particular hand or it's not a profit, it doesn't matter because you want to get into fantasy.
Kings on top, aces in the middle, 2-pair, 10s and 9s on the bottom. You might be thinking, oh, well, I got a weak 2-pair, 1-pair, 1-pair. That kind of sucks. The guy's going to make a boat and a straight and whatever. You don't really care. You're just playing for that Fantasyland because that gives you such an advantage the next hand. So it's what makes people gamble. It's what makes you set a hand that you can potentially foul on, which fouling happens, 15 to 22% of hands, depending on.
Or me, 40% of hands.
Right, depending on how crazy you play and how conservative you play. But
crazy for me.
I'm always throwing my cards. I'm always throwing my big pairs up on top, trying to qualify for Fantasyland.
I would agree. I like that strategy.
So yeah, so you get dealt the ace, king, king. Ace, king, king, 10, 9. It's going to go king, king, ace. You're going to look for an ace in the middle, look to make either a straight or 2-pair or a flush on the bottom, whatever you can make. And then you're fouling up until you make your hand. You either are going to foul or you're going to go into Fantasyland. There's nothing else in between.
And to kind of go back a little bit, when you're playing Heads Up OFC, which is the short version of Open Face Chinese poker, right? OFC poker. And it's the pineapple variant. The whole idea here is the scoring goes each individual hand. You're playing for points. There's no blinds. There's no antes. You're playing for points. Each board is a certain amount, right?
Each
$2 a board.
Just say each board's a point. Whatever point you're playing, you can play for $100 a point. People play for a quarter a point, $1 a point, whatever. So
if your hand wins the bottom board, you win 1 point. If he wins the middle, those 2 points cancel out. Then the third, obviously the top hand will go. Again, scoops still happen and you win double. So you would win 6 points rather than somebody just netting one.
So if you beat me on the top, the middle, and the bottom, you're going to get 3 points, 1 point for each board. And then you scoop, you get a bonus. It's double. Right. So you win 6 points.
Which is huge because normally you're splitting it 2-1, which is only a 1 point differential. So it's really the boards are kind of it's not a huge winner. But then when you're playing OFC now, Open Face, the idea is you get into royalties, which is kind of what the benefit of fantasy is. So give us a rundown of what the points are for royalties and kind of explain royalties for us.
Right. So everybody, I'm assuming now you understand the basics. You're building hands from bottom to top and making good hands. And then there's Fantasyland, which is this bonus. And then the boards are worth a point each.
And even to go one step back, when you play OFC, you typically set a number of hands that you're going to play. So it's not like I'm going to play until I lose or go broke. You're guaranteeing the other person, or you're guaranteeing the game's going to be 10 hands, 20
25
hands,
hands,
50
whatever.
hands, whatever it is. But
whoever's-
you're going to play 50 hands no matter what. And then at the end, whatever the points are, if I'm down 200 points and we're playing a quarter a point, that's $50 I would owe Brandon. If you play $1 a point, it's $200. $5 a point, it's $1,000.
Yep.
$10 a point, $2,000.
They get it. I think
That gets crazy.
it does. So royalties is the additional bonus that you get for making hands. So we're going to start with the bottom, and it's pretty easy. And I mean, obviously, you can look up a chart on the internet, which is how everybody learns. You're never supposed to. I mean, I memorize it because I played way too many hands.
Right.
See, but so a straight on the bottom is worth 2, a flush is worth 4, and a full house is worth 6.
On the
And then
bottom
quads
board.
is worth 10. Yep. So on the bottom. So 2 for a straight, 4 for a flush, 6 for a full house, and 10 for quads. 15 for a straight flush and 25 for a royal flush, but those are pretty rare.
Yeah.
So,
But they
you
happen.
just got to remember the 2, 4, and 6 for straight, flush, and boat. Obviously, it's easier to make a straight than a flush, so you get less points.
Right.
And then everything is double in the middle. So a straight is worth 2 on the bottom, it's worth 4 in the middle. A flush is worth 4 on the bottom, so it's worth 8 in the middle. And a boat is worth 6, so it's worth 12 in the middle. Same thing with quads in the middle is 20 and
But again,
30
in
for a
order to
straight
get
flush.
those royalty points, you have to,
You have to
qualify, right? If you don't
Right, so a
qualify,
flush
you
in the
don't get any
middle, a
royalty
flush-
points.
A flush in the middle does no good when you make you have 2 pair on the bottom and you don't make your boat. You just foul and you lose.
Right.
You get scooped and you make no royalties. You only get your royalties if your hand is a qualifying hand.
Correct.
Which is why when you make a full house on the bottom, you set that king, ace, 10, 9, and you go 10, 9, your first pull, then 10, your second pull. And then you got a full house on the bottom, which is worth 6 points. And you got kings on top, which is worth 8 points. We'll get there later. So now you got 14 points, but if you don't ever hit your ace or make 2 pair or something that beats the kings
You
in
got
the
to
middle,
qualify still.
you got to qualify, you get nothing. And you just foul, and then you get scooped.
You get scooped, and then the other person's probably going to have some royalties as well. So you're going to lose 6 points plus whatever the royalties are. It's a big losing hand. So there's a huge risk and a benefit to going for fantasy versus playing it super safe. I guess that's kind of the game, right? Like you're never going to win a
That really
lot.
is the game.
You're never going to win a lot playing super conservative. You're also
You're gonna
probably
make
not going to
a
lose a lot.
Right. You're going to make a flush on the bottom all the time, and then you're going to score 4 points and never really get scooped but you're never going to get into fantasy, which is when you can build out your boat kings or
And
quads.
Wins 50 points in one hand.
Right. Scoop them, and you got 30 royalties, so that's 36 points.
All right. So royalties, you said are, what is it again? 4, 6, 2, 4, 6?
2, 4, 6 is the
And
main
then
ones. 2
that
for
would
straight.
be straight,
Yep.
full house. No, straight,
Straight,
flush, full house, 2, 4,
Yep.
6. And then in
And
the
then
middle,
double
they
in the
double. So 4, 8, 12 for straight, flush, full house. And then
Yep.
what about the top board? Because that's a 3-card hand. So there's no straights, there's no flushes, there's no full houses, there's no
Sixes are
quads.
worth, sixes are one pair of sixes is worth 1 point. 7s is 2, 8s is 3, 9s is 4, 10s is 5, all the way up to aces, which are 9.
Right.
Aces up top is a very, very strong hand.
You're
You
getting
get
nine
royalty
nine
points.
royalty
That's almost
points.
the same as quads on the bottom.
And again, it's
but-
hard to make aces up top and
'Cause that means you
have a
to at
qualifying
least
hand.
you have to have at least 2 pair in the middle because
Yep.
aces are the top pair. I mean, or you can have aces with a better kicker, but then you got to get dealt all 4 aces. which is
Correct.
very tough. And then you got to beat the 2 pair on the bottoms. So aces is not easy to make, which is why it's worth 9 points. And then obviously like trip 2s up top, which is just dreamy, is 10 points, all the way up to trip aces on top, which is the nuts, which is 22 points.
And again,
but now-
they go up
Yeah.
incrementally. So 3s are worth 11,
Yeah.
4s are worth 12, all the way up.
All the way on up to aces being 22.
Phew. Have you ever gotten trip aces up top?
Yeah. you get it up
Non-fantasy
top.
hand? Non-fantasy hand?
Non-fantasy, no.
Okay. So,
Because that's just psycho.
so
to
that's
put
the
third ace
royalty
up there.
part of it, right? So now we understand how the boards are set up. We know that you get a point for winning each board. If you win all 3, you scoop. You would get double points. Now we understand if you're qualifying, meaning your hands qualify in the correct order, bottom, middle, top, from best to worst. We understand that's now you've qualified. And then once you've qualified, you get royalty points. We understand the royalty points a little bit better now. It's easier to remember. Give it to me again. 2, 4, 6.
2, 4, 6, double in the middle.
Double in the middle, and then the points are you get 1 point for 6s, and then an extra point
Sixes
for every
on up
card
to
higher,
aces.
right?
Yep.
And then aces is 9 points. Trip deuces, which would be the next hand after aces, would be 10 points, and then again, those go up in trips up from there. But trips up top is like freaking bananas.
That's only happening once. Yeah.
Especially when you're playing the game normal. Now, in order to qualify for fantasy, what do you need to get into Fantasyland?
Queens
Sounds
are better
so cool.
up top.
So you got to have
Queens
a pair
are
of
better up
queens
top.
or better up top. So not only do you
And qualify.
you got to qualify, and then you get your 7 royalty points for getting queens up top. Yeah.
Yep.
My math checked out there. Sweet. I'm remembering my royalty points. So you're going to get 7 points on top of, because you're probably going to win that board for sure, and you're going to get royalty points, which is great. So you probably netted points there. But now you're into fantasy because you've got queens or better up top, and you get dealt 14 cards to the other player. Still has to play the same way, getting 5 cards, setting them, getting 3 cards, playing 2, discarding 1. Then they get 3 cards, play 2, discard 1. So the dealing part is a little funky because you each get 5 cards, and then you rip out the rest of your 14.
Yeah, so it'll go like back and forth.
And
like,
then you deal again.
Me, you, me, you, me, you, me. Now we both have 5, and that's just 7, 8, 9, 10, 11, 12, 13, 14.
And then you deal the other person their rounds of 3.
Correct.
And they have to set their whole hand, meaning they have to look at each round individually, discard, look at it, discard, look at it, discard, till they build their entire boards, all 3 of them.
Yeah. Which we can all view.
Then at that point in fantasy, it doesn't matter who the dealer is, because fantasy, you're basically always the dealer. You get to go last is the idea here, right? Yep. And in Fantasyland, it's why it's so dreamy. See what I did there?
I see what you did there.
You get to wait till he sets his whole hand. So we know what that person has. So he's got boat on the bottom, 2 pair, and a pair up top. Like, you get to just rip his whole hand apart because you get to
you can manipulate it to where you can scoop him because you know he's only got 9 high on top. It's like, well, I'm just going to put a 10 high up there and worry about my
other 2 big hands. Right, which is...
And obviously a scoop, when we went over this, a scoop is worth 6. If you take 2 boards and lose 1, that's only 1 point.
Correct.
Versus 6. So a scoop is basically worth 5 additional points if you can scoop them.
You like
compared
6,
to taking 2
basically you're 6xing it. So it's not double the points. I mean, you are doubling the points, but you're really 6 timesing the points. 6xing? Sexing? You're sexing the points?
From 1 to 6.
It's the right word here I'm looking for. You're sextupling?
Sextupling. Yep.
Yeah, you're sextupling the points.
No, I think it's sec. S-E-C.
Not sextupling?
No, that's 8. No, 8 is octo. Sex is 9.
Sex is just fun.
Yeah.
Whoops. 27 minutes. Only the hardcore podcast listeners are going to get this far in.
We're down to Richie Manoli, I says.
Right. Homie says he loves it.
Oh, yeah.
So shout out to Homie.
Shout out to Homie.
He came out and he was like, I love your thing. And he was the one who was like, which one's Brandon? I was like, he was like, oh, I know Brandon. I was like, I know.
Yeah. I'm like, come on, Homie.
He didn't know that was you. It's funny when you have like this podcasting alter ego that like people don't know who Brandon is. And then they see you like, oh, I know who Brandon is. That's great. Right. So once you're into fantasy and then you get to totally manipulate the hand, it's why fantasy is so incredibly good, because not only did you just win a bunch of points in the previous hand, now you're basically just kicking this person while they're down in fantasy. Plus, sidebar.
Meanwhile, they are now trying to get into fantasy to combat you, which means they're gambling and putting their high cards on top and possibly fouling.
So yeah, it's very, very often that you end up fouling out because you're like trying to make these better hands because you have to, because you know you get dealt 14
put
cards.
Up a big score because they're putting up a big score.
Worst case scenario on the bottom, you're going to have a straight, and that would be a really bad fantasy hand if you had straight was your best hand on the bottom. Correct.
Yep. Correct.
I mean, normally it's like full house, force. It's just like, what? And then you get just scooped again. Now, when you're in fantasy, let's say I had queens up top. Do I get to stay in fantasy? Because queens up top qualify for Fantasyland. Do I get to stay in fantasy?
In order to stay, the standard
the rules
stay goes up. The bar goes higher because you get to see all 14 of your cards. So you're already at an advantage. So in order to stay, you have to make quads or better on the bottom or trips on top.
Correct.
So you need a quads, straight flush, royal flush on the bottom. If you don't have any of those, then you got to try to make a hand where you can get trips up top, which isn't very easy. I mean, you have to go like flush, trip threes.
The problem is to stay in fantasy like that. It's like you got to set your own hand to not foul. Have you ever played with anybody who's fouled from fantasy? Like just because they screwed it up?
I mean, I've done it like when I've been playing Pat, like heads up, but it was just like
We know
like you
it's a
put the
mistake.
you put 66699 on the bottom and then 888 deuce in the middle, and you're like, whoops. Clearly, the bottom boat is supposed to be bigger, and I just need to move around. But on the internet, if you're playing on an app and you set it and you foul, I mean, it's just like a bomb goes off and you foul and you lose.
Yep.
There's nothing you can do about it.
So now
I've definitely done that.
That is why. The other thing that it's great about fantasy, it does not count towards your hands. It's like free points for that winner or for that person who's in fantasy. It doesn't count against you in the scheme of you get 50 hands and that's all you're going to play. Fantasy hands do not count.
Right.
They don't count towards
50 hands in addition to the fantasy hands.
Right. They don't count towards your predetermined hand count.
Yes.
Which is great.
It is.
Let's see what else. Let's talk about the online version, because you and I will play at and people play all the time. They play on just with a deck of cards, and you're playing. It's why it's the solitaire factor, right? Like you actually physically get cards in your hand. It's super easy to deal once you understand the points, which hopefully this episode will help you learn.
You can pull up a chart and then really
just literally Google it. I'll even put it on the CCG and Paramount pages. Like it's super easy. Like once you play a couple of hands, you understand the idea.
You get an hour. Yeah, you get an hour under your belt, and you're going to be like, "Oh, I know. I have a flush."
Yeah, I got here. And then the other part about the scoring is if I have 9, I don't even know if this is possible. If I have 6 fantasy points and you have 4 fantasy points, I net 2. I'm only getting 2 points.
Right. Everything. Each hand washes out
Correct.
The royalty. So if we both have a full house on the bottom, sure, whoever's full house is higher is going to win that board.
Right.
But we both have 6 royalties, so it's just worth 1 point.
Yeah. You just do the difference between the two. Like, oh, I have 6, blah, 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 here or there. Okay, great. And then that's how you score it.
Right.
And then
I
it's
got
always
10 royalties. You got 8. You won boards for a point. So 8 plus 1 is 9. I got 10, so I win a point. Next hand.
And again, it's just a rolling total that you play one-on-one against the other person. Now, even if you're playing 3-handed, which I don't find as much fun. It's more fun heads up.
Yep.
But you could play 3-handed.
Yeah.
In Pineapple version, you can't play any more than 3, even though the most popular is definitely heads up. But you can play 3-handed. When you play 3-handed, if it's Brandon and I and Ice Haze, I'm playing against Brandon, and then I play against Ice Haze. So you score each hand individually. It's not like, correct?
Yeah.
No.
Obviously, the boards are, it's each hand's individually. So I can scoop you, but get scooped by Ice Haze.
Correct. So it's even the boards, not like the old school, the original Chinese poker where you just say, okay, who wins the bottom board? Okay, Billy does. Okay, let's go to the middle one. Okay, Frank does. I don't know where I'm coming up with these names.
Yeah, me neither.
And then the top hand, Sebastian wins.
Right. This is different. It's my top against Alex's top, my top against Alex's middle, my bottom against Alex's middle.
Everybody's points are individual. Top. So the only thing about 3-handed play is when you foul, it's extremely expensive.
Because you're getting scooped by 2 players.
2 players.
Which is already 12.
Right.
Plus all of their
royalties. You're just going to get punched in the gut.
And if you're playing for $5 a point and you foul and nobody else fouls, you're instantly down $60. Plus, if somebody's got a boat on the bottom, that's another 30. And then somebody makes fantasy and they got aces on top, that's another 45.
And they're in fantasy.
Yeah, 3-ways gets it's a
you don't
want to
you don't want to foul.
You don't want to foul, but it's also 3-ways is every card but one gets used in 3-ways, so you can kind of like really see where you're at.
Right.
Like, it's like, oh, there's 11 spades out. There's 2 spades left, but this is the last pull, so there's only 9 cards left, and 2 of them are spades. You can calculate your odds right there. 2 out of 9.
I got 2 spades left. 7 of spades and the 5 of spades.
Obviously, you don't get to see the discards, but it's like the Burns and the Mucks and Hold'em. You never count those.
Yeah, I got 9 outs to my flush. It doesn't matter if
regardless how many
have been folded. Right. Yeah, you don't count it that way. Otherwise,
sometimes
you'd go crazy.
You would go crazy. Correct.
Funny side note or funny side story. When I used to play at Hollywood, and this is how old it was. I'm 41 now. This was 21-year-old Ken, 22-year-old Ken. So that's 20 years ago. Good God, I met King 20 years ago at Hollywood Aurora playing limit poker, 5-10 limit. We would play a kill pot. Which means if somebody won 2 hands in a row, then it would double. So the blinds would go to, 10-20, right? Which was great because no limit wasn't allowed at the Illinois casinos. You couldn't play no limit. You had to play limit poker. So it was batshit crazy. It was great. I loved limit. It was fun. And what was I going to tell this one? Oh,
I don't know.
It's always old guys that play limit, and it was like the same 4 or 5 old guys that played. Like they just went to the casino every day at like 10 o'clock in the morning and started the game.
Yeah,
And
this is what they did. Their wives are
that was
old,
their
or
lives.
dead,
They were just like old worms from Rounders. Like that's just what they did. Old Mikes and worms. It was just the old guys playing. So, anyways, I was always the young one trying to scoop some of their money up, and they were really just playing 4 against 1.
So you're Mikey McD in this story.
Correct. But in my story, I remember it was the one time I learned why you don't ever say to another player when you get beat out of the hand and you think it's a bad beat and you go, why would you play that? Why would you do that? That was such a bad bet. So dumb. Why would you play that flush draw against me? Clearly I had you beat. And the guy was like, kid, he's like, every hand's 50-50. And I was like, what? He's like, you either win or you lose. It's 50-50. And I was like, yeah, I guess that's true. I was like, technically, sir, it was 80-20 my way. But yeah, if you want to think 50-50, then I was like, you know what? This is a life lesson. Just that old guy thought I either win or I lose. 50-50. Doesn't matter to me. 2 options. That's it. And I was like,
it's so funny. I know it's story time. I know we got to go. I'm literally stressing out by how many people are outside the max. It must be breaking the early bird right now. But I literally, one of the smartest kids I've ever met. And he was learning like binary, like coding in college, and like he had a full ride to IU. I actually think he had like the Rhodes Scholarship where they like literally paid him to go to IU.
Nice.
I mean, one of the smartest kids I like. He could just instantly do all my homework for me whenever I asked him. Blah blah blah. But now he's just one of those like he's an airhead. Like he has no street smarts, all book smarts.
Yep.
He's just like, and he played poker, and he's smart, but he's dumb at the same time. And I remember it was like summer break between my junior and senior year, and he's over like swimming in my parents' pool. He's just like, I was thinking about it in poker. So you got aces versus kings. It isn't 80-20. Like it's 50-50. You either win or you lose. And like he's obviously learning like binary, which is just ones and zeros.
Right.
And, those are the only 2 outcomes. And I'm like, bro, you sound stupid. He's like, bro, tell me an outcome where aces don't win or lose. And I was like, wow, I really can't.
Yep. When you break it down, everything in life is 50-50. You either win or lose. If you want to look at it that way.
Right. If you want to look at it that way.
There was one more thing I want to talk about. We figured out how to get into better fantasy. You have to have quads or better on the bottom or trips up top to stay in fantasy, which is a really kick in the nuts because you're really pumping this guy for points. Which happens. The NIT seems to always get it on there. The apps have really also taken this game from just something you would play while you were waiting for your poker game to start, either a home game or at the casino, whatever the case may be. It was just something you were doing. It's probably more of a home game thing. You play with your buddies
before they have to deal.
Correct. It's fun to do. I would recommend if you want to try it and you're sitting at a 1-3 game at any clubs that you go to, or any casinos might frown upon this. They're not really going to let you touch the cards, but like at a charity poker or like in Texas, you can easily be like, hey, dealer, do you want to play open face Chinese poker? And just play it for fun. You don't have to play for points. Just play it so you can get used to it.
Learn it.
But once you start learning it, there's a bunch of great apps that are all free. It's not like you have to pay anything for them. I mean, the one that we all used before.
It's the Pineapple.
It's just called Pineapple app. It's great. You can get buddies on there, and you just download. It's free, and you just set the hands. You set the qualifications that you want to do. You can also play
the computer and just like learn.
I did that for a long time. It's great and fun to do. The computer's pretty damn good. So
they're good.
It's hard to beat the computer. So if you're beating the computer, you should probably try playing for some real money. But you can play with your buddies and keep points. And the nice thing is they do all the royalties for you, which is great. Some of the, and it's something it's the dark side of poker that I never talk about. But like now there are rooms on like poker and
5Rs
and Bros and all of the other apps that have really boomed since the pandemic. They all now have OFC rooms as well.
Yeah.
And you can play on there as well.
It's honestly, and there's all kinds of stuff. You can play for 10 cents a point. Like, you can get your
you have to go crazy.
Whatever you want to play for free. And, you get in these clubs and you can play random people. It's fun. It's like, it's a good way to spend an hour when you got nothing to do. And you're waiting at the horseshoe and your 75 person list that I wait on to get into their 1 PLO game.
Correct. It's nice to be able to play OFC Pineapple on your phone while you're waiting. Because
I don't want to go play a casino game and lose at blackjack.
I lose
That's
all my
fun.
money.
And it's smoky and it's
it's crazy.
I hate smoke, by the way. But anyways, I mean, just be able to sit in the bar or sit in the restaurant and whatever, wait for your spot and sit in the poker room at an empty chair and just play some Pineapple.
Even if you play the computer. I think that's going to wrap it up for OFC. Open Face Chinese
CCG,
Poker.
I will literally always play.
There are so
unless
many.
Unless it's the 3-hour window where I actually have to work, like 6:30 to 9:30 on a Friday. If you come early, come late, come on a Sunday, come on a Thursday, well, we can sit down and play.
I promise you, if you want to play, somebody will play with you. Or better yet, download Pineapple on your phone, and it's great. You just play the computer, learn how to play, learn how to score. They do all the scoring for you. You don't even have to do anything. You just play for a little bit, and you foul a bunch and figure out what you're doing wrong, and then it's great.
So really quick, the apps is so much better when you have to score 3-handed because it's so complicated.
Correct.
Doing each like you can me and Pat can square up within 5 seconds playing 1-on-1. But even me, Pat, and Alex that know the scoring very well, it still takes 30 seconds to a minute when you're playing live to figure out what happened between the three of us. Where the app's just like plus 21, plus 24, minus 45,
right,
and then boom. So that's a plus for the apps. And they also have a little chart you can click on and say, oh, 6s are worth 1, aces are worth 9, flush in the middle is worth 8.
Your little cheat sheet that you might need.
Yep.
Well, thank you for listening to episode 50. Please consider following us on Twitter at The Overlay Pod. Hit us up at CCG or in Texas. I should be in Texas soon. Brandon promised to make a trip to Texas.
I gotta go. I'm really down. Whenever you go next, I'm in.
I'm thinking maybe soon. Maybe Labor Day weekend. Whatever that first Saturday is, we might be doing something like that. So we'll see how it goes. We might do a special Brandon meetup game down in Texas. That'll be great. You guys will enjoy the shit out of him. I promise.
I'll lose some money for you guys.
Brings the action. Other than that, thanks for listening. Hit that subscribe button or what is it called on Apple Podcast? Follow? Subscribe?
Yeah,
I think it's subscribe. Hit subscribe. Follow us on Twitter. Subscribe to us on Apple Podcast. Hit whatever button you need to hit on whatever app you're listening to.
Whatever button that's up there in blue that involves you following us, click that one.
Come say hi. Thank you for 50 episodes. Thank you for 10,000 downloads. Just thank you for listening to Brandon and I bullshit for about 40 minutes twice a month, and we couldn't be more grateful. So lead us out of here, Brandon.
Farewell, everyone.
Fantasyland, boys. Get in there.
Choo-choo.
Choo-choo. Wait, what is choo-choo?
Oh, it was Ice's, like, he was talking about he was riding the fantasy train. I went into the chat.
So when he makes Fantasyland, he goes, choo-choo. That's great.
Yep.
At the same time, choo-choo. See you later, everybody. Bye.